Well, good afternoon, everybody. I hope you're having a very, very good day, and thank you for joining us for this opportunity to learn a little bit more about Pear Deck and using it to provide more interactivity to students that are both in your class as well as those that are joining you remotely. My name is Sean Sleeter. I am a digital innovation consultant here at Region 14, and so now that you know me, I need to know you. So if you'll do me a favor, take a moment and just kind of introduce yourself into this chat for the stream. This is especially important if you're here for credit. That way, then I can go back and we can make sure then that we mark you an attendance for today. If you have a moment, also in the chat, just mention the district that you're with, your grade, your subject, and the position that you teach. Also, maybe even ask or tell us, have you ever used Pear Deck before? And kind of how you used it if you want. We'll be using the chat a lot to ask questions today. And so if you have a question, feel free to put it in the chat at any time. Also, remember, if you have an answer to a question that you see in the chat stream today, you can respond to the person just by putting the @ sign and then their name. And then that way, then when you respond to them in that using that format, they'll actually see their name highlighted and know that you're responding specifically to a question that they had. The session is being recorded. The stream will be recorded on the digital streaming channel, and we'll make sure we send a link as well as a link to any resources as we kind of finish today. So I'm really glad that everybody could be here today and join us for this opportunity to learn a little bit more about a really neat add-on for Google Slides called Pear Deck. So let's go ahead and kind of get started a little bit with learning more about it. In particular, again, it is an add-on for Google Slides. And really what we're trying to do is make the most out of remote learning. Now, maybe you've had an opportunity where you were doing things in the spring in particular with remote learning and trying to use Zoom or really any other kind of synchronous platform, and you're trying to get people to be interactive, or maybe you've been on a number of Zooms and let's say they were not the most interactive. Maybe you were enterprising and kind of, how can I put it, thinking outside the box, like this guy here. Found his Twitter feed a while back, and I wanted you to show what he was doing using the background feature in Zoom, where he would take a video of himself and looking attentively and kind of nodding, and then put that in as his virtual background where he could do stuff like this. Now, maybe I'm giving nefarious ideas to folk when I show you this, but basically, hopefully this is not something that you've ever felt like doing, although I do have to confess to my peers and say that I have been tempted to do something like this on a couple of the Zoom sessions that I've been in. So I understand completely if you were ever in that boat and felt like you needed to do something like that. It's tough. Sometimes it's challenging because we are people who like to be face to face with other people when we're doing things. We like to collaborate like that. Even introverts like myself need a little time to do things face to face, and then not just a one-way form of that communication. We need to be able to share ideas back and forth. So hopefully Pear Deck is a good way for us to do that. And why might we want to do that? Well, because we do need to be more interactive in what we do, both in the classroom and remotely in those moments. So when we're looking at doing things, especially to help our remote learners, one of our kind of slogans or logos here at the Service Center for this whole remote learning introduction piece was, don't just try to transition, but to go ahead and transform what you do. This is a great opportunity to do that, Pear Deck being one of the tools you can use that will help you along that way. So Katie Martin is one of the ladies that I follow. I really appreciate some of the things that she speaks as an educational thought leader. She has a way of really taking some of the current ideas of the day, getting them in a very concise manner. And this was one of the diagrams that she built basically as we were gearing up to come back to school and really started thinking about having students that are in our classrooms and those who are trying to learn the content from remote locations. And so what she's doing here with this diagram is reminding us that this is what that transition really involves. Where learning we think of happening at school, learning now happens inside learners. And that really doesn't matter whether those learners are all located in one place or whether they're remotely. That where in school-based learning, we focused on paced and scaffolded instruction, that sometimes instead of having an entire classroom pacing at the same time, our instruction needs to be asynchronous, which means that the learner can choose when that happens, and it needs to be self-paced so they can go as fast or as slow as they need to. That where there's an immediate feedback cycle for teachers to use to help plan further instruction, that those feedback systems cannot be immediate many times when we get outside of a paced instructional moment. And that means then you're going to have to intentionally design those feedback systems in at the beginning. So understanding here are the common pitfalls that our students encounter when they're learning things, and therefore then we need to have ways in place to gauge those right at the moment if we can. That where we have a consistent setting in school-based learning and remote learning or distance learning, that setting and the resources our students have vary a whole lot. There's a common defined schedule, of course, for school-based learning, and those schedules change and are based on the students' needs and the family's needs when we really look at them inside a remote learning moment. That student work is visible to us. We can see the students' work. In a distance learning, what we really need to do is focus more on what learning can be made visible in that moment. And then, and that's really to where it's helpful for both our students and us as teachers and parents in that moment to be able to show them here's what the learning has actually happened in this environment or with this period or with this module or with this piece that we're working on. And then multi-dimensional interactions, meaning that it's very easy to check up on a student when I walk by their desk when I'm at school, or I can, shake their hand when they're coming into the classroom, and I know how they're feeling for that day. That's a lot more challenging with remote learners. So we need to have intentionally designed check-in systems and ways of checking to see how they are doing, not just on content, but sometimes their well-being, their mental state. All of those things kind of play into this moment. Now, the great thing about this is that all of these things that we've said we need to, move away from or transform toward this remote learning moment are still excellent inside the classroom environment. So we're not saying you're ditching your school-based learning. We're saying we're transforming school-based learning to look a lot more like what we see in the distance learning area, because that distance learning will be just as effective in our classroom settings as well. And again, the nice thing about this is we're going to try to kind of merge those two ideas together. And I mean that because where we're so comfortable with this idea of synchronous learning, and that's really what's happening face-to-face in real time, and we use tools like Zoom and Google Meets when we're doing that remotely, that's great for using for discussion and small group targeted instruction and question and answer. We can build community doing those things. We can use those tools for whole group lessons and feedback and guidance, and of course, celebrations of learning that we're trying to do during those moments. But we don't need to forget that there's also asynchronous learning going on. And this doesn't matter whether we're in a school-based learning environment or a remote learning environment. That this can occur through online channels or occur offline even, allows the learners to move at their own time, place, and pace. I really appreciated Katie using this as a definition for what asynchronous is. We can teach new content or skills asynchronously as well as synchronously, but we can use it for that, where students have an opportunity to kind of move through the new material in paces that help their learning. Personalized learning that can maybe even meet their own style, and also have time for project development in this. So they're working on a project in order to kind of refine and hone these new knowledge and skills that they're gaining. And then time to reflect on their learning, not just what they learned, but how they learned it, what was challenging about learning it, and ways of learning material that is challenging in the future by introducing new strategies and new ways of thinking about our thinking. So those are things that I think are very, very important in the process of deciding how we're going to structure things for this, I would say, new learning environment. Remote learning isn't new. We've done it for a long time. It's just now we're doing it on a much broader scale than I think we have ever done it before. So Pear Deck can be used in, again, a school-based learning environment or remote learning environment. It can be used synchronously, or it can be used asynchronously. So we're going to really look at how does Pear Deck work within Google Slides. In particular, how do you prepare and then present a lesson using Pear Deck with Google Slides? And then how can Pear Deck help transform learning for both in class and remote at the same time? That's really what we want to focus on and spend our time on this afternoon in particular, is those areas. So when you leave, you'll have a great introduction to what Pear Deck will do for you and some of the things it can and can't do, especially depending upon kind of the level of Pear Deck that you're looking at using. Because I know in a regular classroom, it's pretty easy to sometimes glance up, even in a one-to-one environment, and know maybe who's with you and who's struggling just by reading faces. Sometimes it's better to give even a little bit more information than that. But in an online classroom view, things don't always look that way. Sometimes you're not able to see that. And again, as we've talked earlier, this idea of Pear Deck should help us to have engagement happening not just in one environment or the other, but in both the school-based learning environment and our remote learning environment. So this is the logo for Pear Deck. You'll be seeing it as we're going through things. Look for this. Peardeck.com, of course, is the website that has a lot of information about this. This is a company, and they provide a free version of a free level of the software that integrates with Google Slides that we're going to talk about today. So you can do a number of things free. Now, here at the Service Center, kind of as some truth in advertising moment, we do have a premium version of it. So some of the features that I show you today are things that are available under the premium accounts, and I'll make sure to tell you what is free and what is premium as we're going through it. The majority of what I'll show you at first is free, so you can try it out. You can start using it tomorrow if you want to inside your classes. There's a lot of stuff you can do just with the free account. The premium account adds some additional bells and whistles that I think helps kind of the quality of life maybe that you get using Pear Deck as a classroom teacher. So you have additional controls that you can use. You have maybe even additional question types that are really, really useful like that hopefully will help you get the most out of it. And then, of course, the custom is if your school or district, you have a lot of teachers who decide to use this, schools and districts can purchase these and a seat license sort of structure to where then they can pay for accounts and have those added in as staff comes and goes like that. So a lot of different ways that you can use it. To go ahead and go back to our idea of there is an asynchronous mode that you can put Pear Deck in. So you can actually have Pear Decks be something that you could assign to students with the premium accounts that will work in a student-paced mode. Now, unfortunately, this is a premium, so I'm not going to show it today. I'm just going to stick to basically what we can do synchronously like that. But if you're more interested in that and you get the premium account, of course, you can play with those and see most of the question types and everything that you're used to in the synchronous side of this, you can still do asynchronously as well. Now, I do have to also say that during this stream, we're going to have some, what can I say, complications. Uh, and I mean that because what we're going to really try to do is work inside. I want to show you what it's like to be working inside and using a Pear Deck as a student to start with. So because of that, we're going to need to have this stream open maybe on one tab or one device, and we're going to need to have our Pear Deck open in another stream, another tab or another device as we're using it. So you may want to open an additional tab in your browser if you're using a computer to access this stream right now. So just you'd hit the plus button that shows up, and you would want to have two tabs open in uh, your presentation here in a second. So you've got the stream with me in it in one, and you've got the Pear Deck tab that we'll go to here in a second, and I'll give you the web address to go to for it that will allow you to interact with the presentation that we're going to show. That's one way to do it. Now, if you're on a device that has a very small screen, or you feel more comfortable having two screens available to you or two devices available to you, you can access the Pear Deck. You can have this stream open maybe on the computer. You've got it going on right now, and you could open up Pear Deck on a phone if you wanted to in the phone's internet browser, or iPad, or whatever other device you've got. But to interact, you'll need to try to do one of those two. Now, to also help us kind of stay on track and to help us navigate on the slides that you're going to see coming up, if you see the YouTube logo on the slide, then just focus on the YouTube stream. And I'll try to tell you when we're switching back and forth as we go. But if you see that on the page, whether you're looking at it in Pear Deck or you're looking at it in the YouTube, if you see the YouTube logo, you'll know what we're really talking about is probably going on inside the YouTube stream. So you can switch back to there. You can use the chat to talk with each other, anything like that that you need to do. If you see on the slide the Pear from Pear Deck, then be sure to go ahead and focus on your Pear Deck that way. There's a question to answer, or there's something to do if you see the Pear Deck logo. So just go to whatever tab or device you've got the Pear Deck pulled up to, and use it to be working on and doing kind of what we've got planned for the day. All right, so let's try this out. So on another tab or another device, I need you to go to joinpd.com. joinpd.com. When you get to joinpd.com, it's going to ask you to enter a code. And the code are the 6 letters that you see in white right now up on the YouTube stream. Up on the YouTube stream, you'll see KSKCYL, or Keen Submarines Kindly Conduct Young Lemons. I've got 2 students in. I can see that as I'm looking up here at the dashboard and at the projected screen. 4 students in. This is great. Y'all are doing so good. If you're having troubles getting in, just chat us in the stream. We'll be more than happy to help you get into today's session. KSKCYL. Awesome. All right. So I've still got about 4 students in. That's probably about where we're at. So I'm going to close the join code. And if you're still trying to get in and you can see the YouTube stream, it'll be a little bit smaller, but up in the upper right-hand corner, I will keep those letters up at joinpd.com, and just KSKCYL will get you into your Pear Deck side like that. So I think we're ready to go. I'm going to go ahead and ask you to look over at the Pear Deck. Go over to where you have Pear Deck open, and I've got some questions for you, starting with this one. So if you'll answer this question in Pear Deck. All right. Got getting some responses in. Looks like I've got about 2 of 4 responses. I'm going to go ahead and show the responses to this question as we're getting them. So if you'll go back and look at the YouTube stream for a minute, and probably also on your Pear Deck, you'll see the responses. So it looks like we have teachers, educators who were between 15 and 27 years, with the average being about 21. Awesome, good job. All right, I'm going to hide the responses again and ask the next question. So this is back on your Pear Deck. This is back on your Pear Deck, and it's going to ask you, how comfortable are you with Pear Deck? How comfortable are you with Pear Deck? I'll get a chance to respond. How comfortable are you with Pear Deck? I'm going to show the responses to this one. So it looks like we've either heard of Pear Deck but not had an opportunity to use it, or we've used it but maybe only once or twice. That's great, because I can understand that. It is one of those tools that it's been around for a while, but at the same time, if we haven't had a need for it or seen a need for it, or we just haven't had an opportunity to work with it, it may be brand new to us like that. Okay, I've got one more question for you. I'd like you to create a statement that can be used to make this image into a COVID-19 meme. Try that one out. So create a statement that can be used to make this image into a COVID-19 meme. Oh, we're getting some good answers. Some really cute memes. I'll have to share them here in a second. This is great. All right. So I'm going to share one right now from one of the students. So I like this one. Hey, Wilson, your mask is upside down. Oh, is this a masquerade ball? Oh, okay, that one was good. COVID-19 kicks. That's awesome. Oh, y'all did good. Cool. So I'm going to go ahead and continue with our presentation. The nice thing about this is that using this as a teacher, well, it isn't magic, okay? It's actually really easy to do this. You noticed as a student then how easy it was to respond to the questions, and then it was very easy for me as the teacher to show that information. Now, one of the things that I didn't show you right now was that as those responses came in, since you entered your name on this, I knew who you were and I could see who the responses were, even though when I presented that information, those responses were anonymous to when I projected that information out. So as a teacher, that's a very powerful tool. I know who said what, how they said it, or what they answered most of the time, and I can target individual students if I need to in that moment in follow-up questions, or I can just this is about where the class is at, so this will help me kind of gauge where I need to go next in my instruction. So again, not magic, it's just Pear Deck. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to get started with Pear Deck in Google Slides. So I'm going to switch over to the stream for a second. So if you don't mind opening up the YouTube stream tab, these instructions will stay on your Pear Deck tab or on your device. So if you want to look at those at any time, look at that tab, kind of refresh yourself at where we're at. And then I'll make sure that I share this presentation out at the end where you will have access to these and to these kind of 4-step instructions to help you get started with Pear Deck and Google Slides. So we're going to open Google Slides. We're going to click on add-ons to get the Pear Deck feature added to our Google Slides. Find it in the add-ons, and then it will create a sidebar menu that we can then use. So let me show you what this looks like. I'm going to actually share out kind of another presentation that I've been working on, another copy of this presentation. And forgive me that that was open because I've already got Pear Deck installed. But here's what the installation would look like. You're going to find add-ons up here at the top of Google Slides. And then if I didn't have it, it wouldn't show Pear Deck there. So I'm going to come down here to Get Add-ons. And this is the where I can search for different add-ons for Google Slides. Now, our internet here seems to be running just a little slow today. Don't worry about it. It'll load eventually. But this is where we actually can load our, get access to our add-ons here. If it doesn't quite load here in a second, there it goes. I mean, just be patient, Sean. Sometimes Pear Deck shows up as one of the first things in the add-ons for Google Slides, probably because it is used a lot. So that's probably why it's very popular. If it doesn't show up, of course, just type in Pear Deck up here at the top. And then when you do that, it will show up. And then when it finishes, you can just click on it and then tell it to install. So where mine says uninstall, it'll be a blue bar that says install. You click on that, and then it adds the Pear Deck add-on to Google Slides. Anytime you've got Google Slides running, you can get to Pear Deck then. Now, again, it will show up here in your menu bar as Pear Deck, and when you click on that, which is what I'm doing right now, come on. It may be giving me grief because I've already got it loaded and running. Then the Pear Deck sidebar will show up. There it goes. There it goes. It's just taking its time this afternoon. So when the Pear Deck loads, this is where all of the sidebar over here is where all of the features will load for Pear Deck, like that. But once you've got it installed, this is where you can basically create the interactivity that you're going to be able to put into your presentation. So to add that interactivity, there's 4 other steps that you might want to do. So that's where we're going to open Slides and click on Pear Deck. We're going to select the slide that we want to make interactive, pick a question type, and then Pear Deck's going to give us a dialog box that we can use then to set up that question. So let's walk through what that looks like. So here's how that will work. What we'll do is again, maybe I'm going to set up this examples of devices for learning question. I want to know the devices that your students use regularly when they're remote learning. So I think I want this to be a draw question. Now, draw questions are typically one of the more premium features, if I remember correctly. Right now, it's kind of hard to tell which is premium and which is free because Pear Deck has and I can't remember when they'll stop, they have extended a lot of the premium features due to COVID-19 for use under the free accounts. So right now you'll notice it says it's adding interactive question. And when it finishes adding it, now what I've done with this, you'll notice down here at the bottom, I see the Pear now, I see this, and I've got this kind of bar that's running across the bottom of my Slides presentation says Pear Deck interactive slide, do not remove this bar. That's important. This is how it recognizes that this slide will now be interactive when we're running this inside Pear Deck, like that. Since I chose draw, there really wasn't a lot of other things I had to choose for options for this. It automatically understood that I'm going to create this where I'm going to have students basically use annotation tools to draw over the top of this image. Now, the next type of question that I want to set up is a video question. So sometimes watching video is challenging, especially when you're synchronous and you're remote and school-based at the same time. What's nice about this feature is students have their own ability to pause the video, to rewind the video, to watch other parts of it. So they're not just following whatever I've got playing wherever we're at in the classroom. If there's some part that they missed because an animal ran through where they were doing their remote learning, or any sort of situation, they just didn't catch something, they didn't hear something good, then they can always rewind to that section and get that again. And sometimes, especially in areas where the internet is challenging, if I'm showing a video through Google Meet or Zoom, that could be garbled at times. It could be harder to see. So this is a nice question type. It is a premium question type that allows us to add kind of interactivity and sources like the video in, like that. I did that through the website question. So I'm going to click website. And I know, let me close that real quick. I forgot. I put the source for this question here. I want to go ahead and copy that when I'm building this. Come on. Oh, I don't want to move it. Let me push this back real quick. And so let me copy the link, because this is this is the YouTube video I want to watch on templates. So I'll click that website again. And so instead of just opening a website, this is going to open a YouTube link in this case. All right, so when it gives me the options here, I should be able to then type in the URL, or in this case, paste in the URL for what I want them to go look at. So instead of asking a question, this question type is really good to share links to resources that you may want the students to use to answer a follow-up question or things like that. So I'm going to put the link there. I'm going to go ahead and tell it to update slide. So it shall insert that, and then this question is now set up to take students out to that website. And the last question that I want to create here is one that is a draggable. And this is done, do you feel comfortable using Pear Deck templates? The video that we just linked actually talks about using Pear Deck templates to help with some of these. They're pre-built questions that are already you drag them out of their template library and into your slides presentation, and you don't have to create these from scratch like we're going through today. This, I know I need it to be a draggable question because I want people to select where along this line that they're going to drag. So again, I choose draggable from the sidebar. The options will come up, hopefully here soon, to allow me to kind of select the markers I want to use and things like that. I'm going to make this a classroom projection like that. Actually, I'm going to make it a student device one, I think. Come on. All right. And then I can choose the options I want. So if I want dots, we can use dots. But if I want flags or hearts or thumbs ups or thumbs downs, any of those, a marker location, I could use any of those. I think today we're going to use flags. And I can even change the size of that flag that I want, like that. And then I update the slide. Actually, on there, I think I may need to drag the flag down. We'll see if it works or not. Like that. All right. So now this would be ready. I could have the kids come in. I click Start Lesson, and then these questions are now interactive and ready for use. So to present them, here's what we'll do. We're going to present with using, again, Start Lesson. You'd have your students, just like I had you do earlier, go to joinpd.com and enter the code. And then when your students have joined, you just click Continue, and your slides appear on the students' devices. And when you change the slide, it's going to change on the student device. And then, of course, you get to control. You get to see the students' responses and select answers to display. So we're going to actually play with this with your Pear Deck. So if you'll go back to your Pear Deck slide, we're going to ask those questions and see if you can answer them. All right, so if you look now on to your Pear Deck tab or the device you've got Pear Deck running on for today's class, you'll notice that I've asked that question about the examples of devices for e-learning. So obviously I've got 1 of 4, 2 of 4. Looks like I'm getting some circles. Now, if you want to do, it says at the bottom there to head back to the stream after answering to see responses. I did this time because I pulled over into the screen the teacher response window. So that's what I've got kind of floating here in the middle of the YouTube stream right now for you to see. So if you want to flip over there and see what it looks like, it's a little window that comes up. This is a premium feature, and it is so useful that I had to tell you about it, because now what I'm seeing is I can see all of the responses that were drawn of the types of e-learning devices that your students are using. I can tell the number of students that are in. If I click open roster, you'll notice I can see the 4 students that are in it and the names used for those. I can also come down here and tell it to show responses. And when I do that, you'll notice now that those responses are showing up in your Pear Deck tab. So now they're visible as part of the Pear Deck presentation that you see on your Pear Deck devices if you want to flip back there and look at it. So this is an easy way to share the responses back and forth with your students. See, now it's like, well, I could ask the follow-up questions of who all really thought mobile phones are what we're using for e-learning, or who all thought a game console was what we were learning, things of that nature. I'm going to go to the next question because this was our video question, and we're back on the Pear Deck tab or your Pear Deck device. And at this point, I'm going to give you an opportunity to watch the Pear Deck, the video on Pear Deck templates that will show up on this website. If you run into troubles with it, just let me know. Okay, Christy has said that hers is finished. If you can still hear me in the stream, I know this is kind of, you may have the video talking in one ear and some old bearded guy from the service center talking to you in the other one, so I apologize for that. I'm going to go ahead and advance to the next slide, and because that has the question on it that goes along with this video. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. If you're still in the Pear Deck side, now you'll be able to see the question in Pear Deck. So in your Pear Deck tab, you'll see the question. We'll wait for responses. And I've pulled a bit of a fast one with you this time. You'll notice that we've got thumbs ups on this one instead of our flags. I used a slightly different, I've got a different presentation than the one running that we showed. But so forgive the magic in the back of the box on this one. So we've got 4 responses. Now if you'll flip back over to the YouTube stream where you can see the teacher window, the presentation window, you can notice kind of the same thing like what we saw on the drawing side. I can now see on the teacher window all the responses, but then you may have noticed if I hover over people, I can hover over people, and as the teacher, I can see the responses, the individual student. Now, if I tell it to show responses, so I'm going to show the responses, and I'm going to kind of move the teacher out of the way so it's no longer being shared. You'll notice on it, I just see those. And now in your Pear Deck tab, you'll also see the fact. And I left it unlocked. So if you're having a class discussion about this, or I showed additional information, let's say on the templates, and you change your response, you could change it at any time. So this is another kind of tool that you could use if you're having classroom discussion or things like that. You can actually, agree or disagree and tell the students, hey, you're allowed to move this at any time that your opinion changed during that process. Okay. So, there are also new types of Pear Deck questions that are out there. There are some very interesting ones in particular. Now, being an old science teacher, this one was one of my favorites. This is a drawing one. So if you look over on your Pear Deck tab or Pear Deck device, you'll see that we could have it where I could ask for, give me I don't know, an element that has the atomic number 6. Circle that. And so you could then respond to it if you wanted to, like that. I could ask another question of, circle 2 elements that commonly bond together in a 1-to-1 ratio, or anything like that that you wanted to on the question, and do it like that if you want to. You can, in the template for this, you can actually delete specific parts if you wanted to, and then have the students just focus on those parts or ask questions about what you deleted in that moment. The other nice thing about some of these pre-built templates like this one is that you actually get notes. You may have noticed I've been using the notes tab here under the teacher window. And this is visible now in the YouTube stream if you want to look at it. Because I've got the teacher window pulled back over into the stream. They'll give you notes on how to set up and use that template. So let me show you how you would import a template question if you wanted to use it instead of just starting blank. So I'm going to have to do this inside the YouTube stream for a minute. So let me go back over to my test slide in the YouTube stream. So if you want to join us there, and if I want to insert a template, I can just come over here to the template library that's in the Pear Deck sidebar. Click on that, and you'll see a number of different templates that I can start with. Some of them are sorted by beginning, middle, and end of lesson. I really like that that's kind of a teacher way of thinking about using Pear Deck. What sorts of questions might I ask at the beginning of a lesson? What questions might I ask in the middle? And what questions then are the reflections and exit ticket sorts of things I might use at the end? Critical thinking, what level of thinking am I looking at trying to get to? Social emotional learning, so helping students layer in this idea of their wellness and their social emotions, but also understanding and working with others in that piece. There's also subject areas like math, science, social studies. So maybe I want a social studies question. These are all draggable. So maybe what I want, I'm just going to pick one that's a chronology question here, like this. And I can pull that over, select it, and have it actually pull into my presentation. It's a little slow today, but we can make, there it goes. So you see we've just pulled that question over. And now I can change these events around, and it says to draw lines to put these events in chronological order. Or in this case, where they drag them to drag the numbers to put them in chronological order. I can have it where I ask them to find a place on Google Maps. And this is, again, these are all pre-built templates that I can use with teachers, we use with students, either one, and do that from there. All right. And again, let me close out today with some tips for Pear Deck slides. And I'll put this on the YouTube stream. It should also be showing on your Pear Deck tab, either one. That, remember, you can edit a template slide like you edit other Google slides. So if there's a picture you don't like or another picture you want to use, you can insert those as images over the top of their templates without any trouble. The trick is, step number 2, do not remove the bar at the bottom. It's what kind of communicates with Pear Deck to help the magic work. Remember, you can change a template to a different question type. So if you liked the slider or the images or the drag and drop interactivity of a template, but you didn't like the question style, change it. You can do that. Another nice feature is add audio to slide. Let me see if I can flip over real quick on the YouTube stream and show this inside Pear Deck for a second. Let me close out of my templates, go back like this. So I'm out of the template library. You may have noticed this under the area where I was putting the questions in earlier. And so especially for asynchronous work, you can add audio to a slide. So you could have a reading area where you were fixing to ask a question over a reading passage, but you could actually have the audio of the passage being read for students. If that was helpful to you, just click audio to slide. The dialog box will come up. It allows you to record audio, allows you to import audio, and you can do that. And we're close on time, so I'm going to go ahead and not wait for it to load. I apologize for our internet being, there it goes. Yep. So the audio recorder, you can record, you can upload audio, and then it will play. There will be a play button that's right there inside the slide when you get to it inside Pear Deck, like that. So inside the, I'm going to do some Q&A inside the YouTube stream. And I also want to go ahead and kind of close with what are some new ideas that you have about Pear Deck and how might it help you merge your in-class and remote learning. So if you don't mind responding inside the chat inside the chat stream for YouTube, what are some new ideas now that you have about Pear Deck, and how might it help you merge in-class and remote learning? We'll let people chat, and I say I'm going to be monitoring the stream, see if I can answer some questions on it. So Christy responds and says, I love the maps chronology new options. Those are new. Those were new since summer, in fact, some of those. It's really neat that you can do use for social studies in particular. And I would say this from the old science teacher, probably the reason that periodic tables showed up was those things are not always fun to make interactive. And yet the way that's structured, if you use that as a template, you'll realize it's very easy to manipulate like that. Also, Sharon says, I love the video and audio adds to help provide variety to the asynchronous learning. It does. So you could, if you have that premium version, which we have here at the Service Center, you can very easily add a video and then have students answer questions over it like that. You could add audio and have students answer questions over that. And then again, they can do that at their own pace. Some of you may have done some of that when you were working with the template earlier. If you didn't have some, how can I put it, pushy consultant getting us going again, you could have sat there and watched the video 2 or 3 times before you went in to answer the question. Christy, thank you for commenting and saying it seems super user friendly. I think so. I think that it's very easy the way it integrates. And again, it's right there in slides. They're not having to get out, put their slides into something else basically to get it to do its thing. And again, once you tell it start, you get the join code and you're good to go like that. Oh, Hillary is my learner of the day because she taught me something. I also saw the Newsela feature today that had recently been added. That's true. So now you can use Newsela inside with Pear Deck. You could have always done it, but this is an easy way to do it. So again, thanks, Hillary. And I appreciate Sharon's excitement with that too, because yep, I agree. That was good. All right. Any other questions that I can help you with as you start your journey into Pear Deck? Cool. Oh, yeah, Hillary's giving credit to Donna, saying Donna was the one that helped show her to her this morning. That's awesome. I do appreciate being part of a body of learners and teachers, basically, that don't mind sharing the stuff they learn because, oh, that's going to be cool. All right. Again, I want to say thank you. Thank you for participating today. Thank you for coming and being a part of the stream. I'll remind the link to the stream in the description for that. I will put the link to our presentations we used today that have all the little 4-step slides in it, as well as some of the examples I used. Once you install Slide Deck, you can probably use My Deck if you were wanting to present this to other people to kind of help them get introduced and started with Pear Deck. But also remember, anytime you have a question or you need help, find me or Hillary or Christy, and we'll be more than happy to always help you not just transition, but to transform your learning for not just remote kids, not just for school kids, for all kids. And again, thank you. And I'll see y'all later.